The city's steel and glass towers scraped a sky the color of a forgotten bruise, indifferent to the lives unfolding within their shadows. In one such monument to commerce, the Harrington Corp headquarters, Elena Rivera moved with a quiet efficiency that rendered her nearly invisible. She was a woman carved from resilience, her dark hair often pulled back severely, her uniform immaculate despite the grueling hours. Her son, 7-year-old Leo, was her world, a bright spark of imagination in their small, tidy apartment. Sometimes, when childcare fell through, Leo would sit quietly in a corner of the vast, empty offices after hours, drawing in his worn notebook while Elena polished floors that reflected a wealth she could only dream of. One late afternoon, as Elena meticulously cleaned the opulent lobby of Harrington Corp, a lobby designed in stark, unforgiving minimalism, Leo, momentarily unattended while Elena retrieved a specific cleaning agent from a distant closet, saw an irresistible canvas. A small, blank section of a pristine white wall, tucked away near a potted fern, called to him. With a bright blue crayon he'd found, he drew a swirling sun, its rays reaching out to a lopsided, smiling flower, a burst of innocent joy in a cathedral of cold ambition. The vibrant blue against the stark white was a child's unfiltered expression, a splash of life. When Mr. Alastair Harrington, CEO and titan of industry, a man whose tailored suit seemed to be woven from arrogance and disdain, strode through the lobby, his eyes, like a hawk's, spotted the incongruous splash of color immediately. A vein throbbed in his temple. What is this abomination? His voice, accustomed to commanding boardrooms, echoed through the cavernous space, sharp and cold as shattered glass. Elena rushed forward, her heart sinking like a stone. She saw Leo's drawing, then Mr. Harrington's face, contorted with a fury that seemed vastly disproportionate to the small, cheerful crayon mark. Mr. Harrington, I am so sorry. My son, he must have. Harrington cut her off with a dismissive wave of his perfectly manicured hand. Your son? You bring your offspring to deface my property? This building is a testament to precision, to order. Not a public nursery for delinquents. His words were like acid. A few junior executives, loitering nearby hoping for a moment of the great man's attention, snickered, their faces a mixture of sycophantic amusement and feigned shock. Elena felt a flush of heat creep up her neck, a deep, burning shame, not for Leo's innocent act, but for the venom being directed at her child. He's just a child, sir. He didn't understand. I can clean it immediately. It will be gone, I promise. Her voice was low, laced with a plea. Harrington laughed, a short, barking sound devoid of humor. Clean it? Of course, you'll clean it. But that's not the point, is it? The point is the utter lack of respect, the carelessness. People like you, he said, his gaze sweeping over her with palpable contempt, simply don't understand the value of things. You're fired. Effective immediately. Get your belongings, and get out. And take that, vandalism, with your son's apologies. He spat the word vandalism as if it were a physical taint. Elena stood frozen for a moment, the cruel words hanging in the air. The public humiliation, the casual cruelty, the dismissal of her son's innocent expression as something vile, it was a crushing blow. Leo, drawn by the commotion, stood near the fern, his lower lip trembling, the blue crayon still clutched in his small hand. He looked from his mother's stricken face to Harrington's enraged one, and tears welled in his eyes. Elena, seeing his distress, straightened her shoulders. A flicker of something hard and unyielding sparked in her normally gentle eyes. She said nothing more to Harrington. Words would be wasted on such a man. She nodded curtly, went to Leo, and knelt, wiping his tears. It's okay, mijo. It's just a drawing then. With a courage born of a mother's fierce love, she took out her old phone and, under Harrington's incredulous glare, carefully took a photograph of Leo's blue sun and smiling flower before turning to gather her few personal items from the janitor's closet. The silence in the lobby was thick, broken only by the quiet weeping of a little boy and the self-satisfied sniff of a man who believed he had just dispensed righteous justice. Little did he know, he had just set in motion a chain of events that would unravel his carefully constructed world. This injustice, witnessed by smirking sycophants and the cold, unblinking eyes of security cameras, was but the first act in a drama of karmic retribution. If you've ever felt underestimated or wrongly judged, then Elena's story might just resonate with you. Stay with us to see how a mother's quiet dignity and a child's innocent creation can challenge the fortresses of arrogance. Mr. Harrington, his chest puffed with the satisfaction of a man who had swatted an irritating fly, recounted the incident to his senior vice presidents later that day, framing it as an executive decision, a necessary reinforcement of corporate discipline. "One must maintain standards, gentlemen," he pontificated, swirling brandy in a crystal snifter. "Allow one small infraction, one lapse in judgment, and the entire edifice crumbles." That, scribbling, was an affront. A sign of the chaos that ensues when boundaries are not rigidly enforced. She was, of course, utterly replaceable. A dime a dozen. His audience nodded sagely, their expressions carefully mirroring his own disdain. One particularly oleaginous executive, eager to curry favor, chimed in, "Absolutely, Alistair. You nipped it in the bud. Can't have that sort of element bringing down the tone of the place. Imagine if a client had seen it." Harrington beamed, basking in the glow of their sycophantic agreement. The memory of the small, vibrant drawing, however, and the quiet, wounded dignity of the woman he had so casually dismissed, did not fade as easily as he might have hoped from the minds of a few lower-level employees who had witnessed the scene with a knot of discomfort in their stomachs. Meanwhile, Elena faced the harsh reality of unemployment. The label of being fired for negligence, as Harrington's HR department had gleefully embellished, was a scarlet letter. Landlords became impatient, bills mounted, and the gnawing anxiety for Leo's future became a constant companion. Leo, sensitive and perceptive, understood that his drawing was the cause of his mother's distress. He stopped drawing for a while, his crayons lying untouched, his vibrant imagination clouded by a premature sense of guilt. Elena, however, would not let his spirit be crushed. "No, mijo," she'd say, her voice soft but firm, cradling his face in her hands. "Your drawing was beautiful. It was full of sunshine. Some people are too blind to see the sun, even when it's shining right at them. Never stop drawing your sunshine, Leo." Never. She would show him the photograph of his blue sun and flower on her phone, a small, defiant act of preservation. He would look at it, a flicker of his usual brightness returning to his eyes. He began to draw again, secretly at first, then more openly, filling pages of cheap notebooks with fantastical creatures, swirling galaxies, and faces full of emotion. His talent was undeniable, a raw, untamed force that poured onto the paper. Elena, despite her own struggles, recognized the precious gift her son possessed. She took on a series of grueling, poorly paid temporary cleaning jobs. One was at a bustling community center, another at a small, dusty antique shop. Then, for a few weeks, she cleaned a struggling local art gallery. There, surrounded by canvases of all styles, she felt a strange pull. She saw artists, intense and passionate, discussing their work, and she thought of Leo's notebooks, filled with a similar, albeit untrained, intensity. She even dared, once, to show the gallery owner, a world-weary woman with kind eyes, the photo of Leo's wall drawing. The owner had smiled faintly. "Sweet, dear. All children are artists, aren't they?" It was a gentle dismissal, but a dismissal nonetheless. The world, it seemed, was not yet ready to see what Elena saw in her son's lines and colors. But Elena was patient. She had learned long ago that the most profound changes often begin with the smallest, most overlooked seeds. She held on to that photograph, and onto the fierce belief in her son, like a secret treasure, waiting for the right moment, the right soil, for it to bloom. The city hummed on, oblivious, while in a small apartment, a future was being sketched, one crayon stroke at a time. The arrogance of men like Harrington built empires of glass and steel, but the quiet resilience of a mother's love and the untamed genius of a child were forces of nature far more powerful, merely biding their time. Months passed, each one a testament to Elena's perseverance. Finally, a stroke of good fortune, she secured a permanent position as part of the evening cleaning crew at the newly inaugurated Aperture Museum of Modern Art, a stunning architectural marvel that had become the city's cultural centerpiece. The museum director, Ms. Evelyn Albright, was a legend in the art world, a woman with an uncanny eye for spotting raw talent, a visionary who had launched numerous careers from obscurity into the stratosphere. She was known for her fierce intellect, her impeccable taste, and her rather intimidating demeanor, yet also for a surprising undercurrent of empathy. One blustery evening, Elena's regular childcare arrangements fell through unexpectedly. With no other option, and after a hesitant conversation with her sympathetic shift supervisor, Leo accompanied her to the museum. He was instructed to sit quietly in the staff break room with his sketchbook. The museum was closed to the public, a hushed sanctuary of artistic expression. While Elena meticulously polished the vast marble floors of a new installation space, Leo, growing restless, wandered out. He found himself in a wing still under minor renovation. A large, temporary particle board wall had been erected, blank and inviting. Remembering his mother's words, "Never stop drawing your sunshine," and seeing the seemingly unimportant nature of the temporary barrier, Leo felt a familiar urge. He pulled out a fistful of colored chalk he'd pocketed and began to draw. This time, it wasn't just a sun and a flower. It was a sprawling, fantastical mural, creatures with kind eyes, intertwining celestial bodies, a symphony of color and form that seemed to emanate directly from his soul. He was lost in his world, unaware of the passage of time. Ms. Albright, working late, took a detour through the renovation wing to check on progress. She turned a corner and stopped dead in her tracks. Visual cue, slow motion as Albright first sees the mural, her eyes widening. Close up on her face, a mixture of astonishment and awe, there, on a dusty construction board, was a masterpiece of raw, untutored genius. The vibrancy, the composition, the sheer imaginative power of the work took her breath away. It was a style she had never encountered, yet it felt profoundly resonant. "Magnificent," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. Who could have done this?" Her sharp gaze fell upon Leo, small and chalk-dusted, still adding a flourish to a whimsical beast. He looked up, startled, his eyes wide. Elena, having finished her section and realizing Leo was missing, rushed in at that precise moment, her heart lurching with dread. "Leo! Oh, Ms. Albright, I am so sorry. He shouldn't be here. I told him to stay put. I'll clean it right away, it's just chalk, it will come off." Panic laced her voice, the ghost of Harrington's wrath looming large. But Ms. Albright wasn't looking at Elena with anger. Her eyes, usually so critically astute, were soft, filled with an almost reverent wonder as she gazed at the chalk mural, then at Leo. She slowly crouched down to Leo's level. "Did you draw this, young man?" Leo nodded shyly, bracing for a reprimand. Ms. Albright smiled, a genuine, dazzling smile that transformed her stern features. It's absolutely extraordinary. Truly. You have an incredible gift." She turned to Elena, who stood frozen in disbelief. "Your son, madam, your son is an artist." A prodigious 1-inch. Elena's eyes welled with tears, not of fear this time, but of overwhelming relief and a dawning, incredulous hope. You really think so?" Ms. Albright stood up, her mind already racing. "I don't think so, I know so. I've spent my life looking for this kind of untamed vision." She then noticed the sketchbook peeking from Leo's bag. "May I?" Leo, encouraged by her kind tone, handed it over. Page after page revealed a universe of talent. Then, tucked into a pocket of the sketchbook, Ms. Albright found a slightly creased photograph, a vibrant blue sun and a smiling flower on a stark white wall. She looked at it, then back at Elena, a dawning realization in her eyes. "This drawing, there's a story here, isn't there?" Elena, her voice trembling, recounted the humiliating dismissal from Harrington Corp., the cruel words, the casual destruction of her dignity. Ms. Albright listened, her expression growing increasingly grim, then thoughtful. "Mr. Alastair Harrington," she said, the name dripping with a newfound disdain. "He fired you for this?" "He had a nascent masterpiece on his wall and called it vandalism. The man is not only a brute but a fool of colossal proportions." The irony is almost too perfect. A steely glint entered her eyes. "Well, Mrs. Rivera," she said, her voice now charged with purpose. "I believe it's time the world saw what Mr. Harrington was too blind and too arrogant to appreciate. It's time for Leo's sunshine to illuminate more than just a forgotten wall. The hidden power, nurtured in secret, was about to be unleashed." Ms. Albright, a woman of swift decisions and formidable influence, moved with astonishing speed. She immediately commissioned high-resolution photographs of Leo's chalk mural before the temporary wall was dismantled, ensuring its preservation. She then conceived of a bold, headline-grabbing exhibition, Innocence and Insight, the unveiling of Leo Rivera. The centerpiece would be a large, beautifully framed print of the chalk mural, alongside selections from Leo's sketchbooks, and, with a touch of dramatic flair, a prominent, museum-quality framed photograph of that first defiant blue sun and flower, the very drawing that had cost Elena her job. The press release hinted at a story of overlooked genius and the transformative power of art found in the most unexpected places. The art world, always hungry for a fresh narrative, was instantly captivated. Journalists clamored for interviews, critics buzzed with anticipation. The story of Leo, the 7-year-old son of a museum cleaner, whose talent was discovered on a construction hoarding, was irresistible. The exhibition opening was a glittering affair. The city's cultural elite, philanthropists, art collectors, and media personalities thronged the Aperture Museum. Elena stood beside Leo, no longer in her cleaner's uniform but in a simple, elegant dress Ms. Albright had insisted on providing. She watched, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and disbelief, as people marveled at her son's creations. Among the attendees, drawn by the buzz and a sense of obligation as a prominent city business leader, was Mr. Alastair Harrington. He moved through the crowd with his customary air of self-importance, nodding curtly to acquaintances, his eyes scanning for influential contacts. He hadn't paid much attention to the details of the exhibition, merely noting it as another society event to be seen at. Then, he rounded a corner and stopped abruptly. Visual cue, close up on Harrington's face, registering initial curiosity, then dawning horror. The camera slowly zooms out to show him standing before the large, framed photograph of the blue sun and flower, his former wall, now prominently displayed with a small plaque, The Catalyst, crayon on wall, original unpreserved, Leo Rivera, age 7. His jaw slackened. His perfectly composed facade began to crack. It was unmistakably the vandalism he had railed against. Now, here it was, venerated, celebrated. A smartly dressed young journalist, who had been discreetly observing him, approached with a microphone. "Mr. Harrington. A surprising piece, isn't it? The Catalyst, we understand this particular work has a rather unique history connected to your corporation. Could you share your perspective on its journey from an office wall to a museum exhibit, hailed as the first spark of a prodigious new talent?" Harrington's face went pale, then flushed a mottled red. He was trapped. Visual cue, rapid cuts between Harrington's flustered face, the triumphant artwork, and the expectant crowd. He stammered, This is preposterous. A child's scrawl, it's an absurdity." But his bluster sounded hollow, defensive. Ms. Albright, as if on cue, glided to his side, her expression one of cool amusement. "Indeed, Mr. Harrington," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the suddenly hushed room. "An absurdity that you dismissed a work of such innocent brilliance and fired a dedicated employee over it. Perhaps your eye for quarterly reports is sharper than your eye for genuine artistry. Or, dare I say, basic human decency." The journalist's microphone eagerly caught every word. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones were already out, recording, live tweeting. The story of Harrington's callousness, his utter lack of vision, juxtaposed with the heartwarming discovery of Leo, exploded across social media and news outlets within hours. But Elena's years of silent observation at Harrington Corp had not been entirely passive. She remembered more than just the humiliation of her firing. She remembered hushed conversations about questionable accounting practices, overheard snippets of discriminatory remarks Harrington had made about other employees, and the callous disregard for small suppliers. When the art story broke, providing a crack in Harrington's armor, Elena, with Ms. Albright's discreet legal support, provided an anonymous tip to a respected investigative journalist, detailing these other transgressions. Visual cue, a montage of newspaper headlines, news reports detailing Harrington's downfall, stock prices plummeting, board members resigning, protests outside Harrington Corporation. The public unraveling was swift and brutal. Harrington's carefully cultivated image as an infallible captain of industry shattered. His company's stock nosedived. Major clients, spooked by the negative publicity and the emerging whispers of unethical practices, began to withdraw. The board of Harrington Corp., facing a maelstrom of public outrage and financial crisis, convened an emergency meeting. Mr. Alastair Harrington, the titan of industry, the man who prided himself on his standards, was unceremoniously forced to resign. His downfall was as spectacular as it was public, a direct consequence of his own blinding arrogance and cruelty. The venomous words he had spat at Elena echoed back at him from 1,000 headlines, his own hubris becoming the instrument of his destruction. The collapse of Alastair Harrington's empire was a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms and editorial pages across the city. His name became synonymous with arrogance and short-sightedness, a stark reminder that true value often lies hidden beneath unassuming surfaces. For Elena and Leo Rivera, however, life transformed into something beyond their wildest dreams, yet rooted in the simple truths of kindness and talent. Elena, guided by Ms. Albright's mentorship and the sudden influx of resources from the art world's embrace of Leo, found herself at the helm of a new, vibrant organization, the Leo Rivera Foundation for Young Artists. Its mission was simple yet profound: to discover, nurture, and support artistic talent in underserved communities, providing children with the materials, mentorship, and opportunities they might otherwise never receive. Visual cue, symbolic contrast. Elena, once depicted with a broom, now stands at a sleek podium, addressing a hopeful crowd. The humble apartment is replaced by a bright, modern office space for the foundation, filled with children's art. Leo, of course, was the foundation star ambassador, though he remained remarkably unchanged by the sudden fame. He was still the quiet, imaginative boy who loved to draw, though now his drawings adorned gallery walls and inspired children worldwide. He found joy in teaching other children at the foundation, sharing his chalks and crayons, his infectious enthusiasm a beacon of hope. His laughter, once silenced by Harrington's cruelty, now echoed freely. The foundation's launch was a significant event, attended not by the sycophants who once surrounded Harrington, but by genuine admirers, community leaders, educators, and families whose lives were already being touched by its nascent programs. Elena, standing at the podium, her voice clear and strong, delivered a speech that resonated deeply with everyone present. Gone was the hesitant, downtrodden woman. In her place stood a figure of quiet power and profound grace. For too long, she began, her gaze sweeping across the room, we have been taught to judge worth by an address, by a title, by the gleam of an office building. We have been taught to overlook the quiet dignity of those who serve, and to dismiss the dreams of those who have little. My son, Leo, drew a picture. A simple picture, born of a child's joy. To one man, it was an offense, a defacement. To another, a revelation. That man, Mr. Harrington, saw only what he wanted to see, a disruption to his pristine world, an excuse to exert his power. He could not see the sunshine in my son's heart, because his own was clouded by prejudice and arrogance. Her words were not filled with bitterness, but with a powerful, moral clarity. Ms. Albright, and all of you here today, she continued, her voice softening, you saw something different. You saw potential. You saw beauty. You saw the spark of human creativity that resides in all of us, waiting for a chance to shine. This foundation is for all the Leos out there, the children whose talents might go unnoticed, whose voices might be silenced. We will provide the space, the tools, the belief. We will tell them that their dreams matter, that their art is valid, that their worth is immeasurable. Visual cue, close up on Elena's calm, determined expression, then panning to Leo, who beams at her with pride, Ms. Albright nodding in approval. Mr. Harrington's downfall was not our victory, Elena stated firmly. Our victory is this, that from an act of unkindness, something beautiful has grown. That from an attempt to humiliate, a movement to uplift has been born. True power is not about tearing others down, it is about building them up. It is about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, the masterpiece in the unexpected. The applause was thunderous, heartfelt. It was a cathartic moment, not just for Elena, but for everyone who had ever felt underestimated. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But sometimes, hatred and prejudice can blind one to the wonders right before their eyes. Mr. Harrington learned this lesson too late, his name relegated to a footnote of corporate disgrace. Elena and Leo, however, showed the world that talent can bloom in the most unexpected places, and true worth is not dictated by a pay grade or a surname, but by the heart, the spirit, and the indomitable power of human creativity. Never underestimate anyone, for the hand that sweeps the floor today may guide the brush that paints the future tomorrow. What did you think of Elena's incredible journey from injustice to triumph? Every act of creation, every voice raised against prejudice, matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if stories of resilience and hope inspire you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more narratives that will touch your heart and reaffirm your faith in the enduring power of good.